They never asked, they just decided. And as always, I was expected to nod, smile, and somehow make it work. I'm Rachel Connors. I'm 28, a senior accountant at a firm you've probably never heard of. I live a quiet life in a quiet apartment. No drama, no damage. Everything I have, I built from scratch. My degree, my job, my spotless credit, even my secondhand kitchen table. No handouts, no shortcuts. But if you ask my family, I'm the cold one. Not because I yelled or stormed off or did anything cruel, but because I stopped cleaning up after them. My older sister, Erin, is 2 years ahead of me but constantly playing catch-up. She has a gift for turning every failure into a tragedy, and every tragedy into someone else's responsibility. Lost another job? Her boss was toxic. Evicted again? The roommates were jealous. Missed another bill? She's trying her best. And my parents, Carol and Frank, never question it. They just rearrange things. And when they can't fix it, they call me. You're stable, Rachel. You're lucky you can help. That sentence chased me for years. Help with the car, help with rent, help with bail, always help. And the few times I said no, they acted like I was the one breaking something. I learned early that my worth wasn't in being loved, it was in being useful. But even usefulness has limits, and mine was about to become very clear. Sunday dinners were always the same casserole, same table, same passive-aggressive performance disguised as politeness. That evening, something felt off. Mom met me at the door with a smile too wide to be sincere. You look so thin, sweetheart. Are you eating enough? Dad mumbled a hey, kiddo, barely looking up. Erin was already at the table, scrolling on her phone and refusing to meet my eyes. I knew that script. When Mom turned sweet and Dad went quiet, it meant they were about to tell me something they already knew I wouldn't like. We got through the salad. Mom chatted about the weather like it was a personal victory. Dad kept topping off his glass. Erin picked at her food like it was laced with poison. Then Mom put her fork down, folded her hands, and smiled like she'd rehearsed it. Rachel, she said gently, we've been talking. Erin's been going through a rough patch, and she's going to be staying with you for a while. Just like that, no question, no conversation, like she was offering me cookies. Of course I'd say yes. I felt the whole room tense, waiting for me to push back so they could call me selfish. I looked at Erin. She glanced up, then quickly away. Dad cleared his throat, bracing for impact. I smiled. Of course, I said, breezily, if it helps Erin get back on her feet, I don't see why not. Silence. Mom blinked, surprised. Dad let out a breath. Erin leaned back, smugness creeping in like mold. They didn't notice how still I went after that, how quiet. They thought I'd caved. What they didn't know, what no one had thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks, and I had no intention of letting Erin move into a place that didn't exist. I didn't plan to lie to them. It took years of quiet disappointments and guilt-wrapped favors, before I saw it clearly. In my family, being strong just meant being convenient. When I was 21, Erin's car got repossessed. She called crying, said she'd lose her new job without it. I co-signed. 3 weeks later, she quit. She missed the payments. My credit tanked. At 23, Mom called sobbing. Mortgage overdue. Dad laid off. Erin had moved back in. I wired $2,000. No thank you. That Christmas, I got a mug that said World's Best Daughter. I nearly laughed. At 25, Erin got a DUI. Dad begged me to keep it quiet, for the family's reputation. I paid for the lawyer. Erin never said a word. A year later, she got pulled over again. I said no. Mom called me cold. You've never known what it's like to worry about someone you love, she said. Erin's life is harder than yours. That's when I knew, not suspected, knew. They didn't see me. They saw a service, a faucet, a wallet. I started pulling back, gently, declining, changing the subject, saying, I'll think about it instead of yes. They noticed. They didn't like it. One night, sitting in my apartment, the condo I'd bought myself, decorated on clearance, paid for with diligence, I realized something. I didn't feel safe there, because it wasn't mine anymore. When they wanted something, it became ours, just like my time, my money, my silence. So I made a choice. I sold the condo, quietly, legally, no drama. I moved to a small rental across town. No one asked where. I didn't volunteer. Not to punish them, not for revenge. For peace, for me. Sometimes, when you grow up in a family that only sees your usefulness, The kindest thing you can do for yourself is disappear, just enough to breathe. The text started Monday. We'll bring Erin's mattress Saturday. Frank's loading the boxes Friday night. She's so excited to have her own space. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They were talking to a version of me that no longer existed. The version who rearranged her life silently, who swallowed resentment like it was responsibility. They'd leaned on her for years. They didn't realize she was gone. By Thursday, Mom was texting daily. Let me know if I should clean anything before she moves in. Erin's bringing her own dishes. She won't be a burden. That one made me laugh over coffee. Erin hadn't washed a dish in her own apartment in years. Still, I let it play out. No protests, no corrections, just silence. Saturday morning, I left early, coffee in hand. I wandered through a farmer's market without buying a thing. Let the sun sit on my skin a little too long. My phone buzzed 3 times before I looked. Missed calls, voicemails. I let the 4th one through. Rachel. It was Mom, her voice sharp with panic. There's someone here, a man. He says he lives in your condo, says you don't live there anymore. I let the silence stretch, just long enough for her to feel it. You didn't tell us, she snapped. You never said a word. No, I said calmly, I didn't. Shuffling in the background, bags rustling, Dad's voice rising, Erin murmuring something I couldn't catch. What is this? Mom hissed. I sold the condo, I replied, weeks ago. You what? I moved out quietly. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say. For a moment, nothing. I imagined them standing there, stunned, bags at their feet, realizing they'd planned an invasion and ended up at the wrong house. Then Dad cut in. You lied. You said she could move in. I said, if it helps Erin, I don't see why not. I never said where. Another pause, a breath sucked in, then Erin, finally. So what? We're just supposed to figure it out now. She didn't sound angry, she sounded small, lost. And for a second, I almost said something. But I didn't. Because they didn't know this. I didn't change the locks out of spite. I didn't sell the condo to teach a lesson. I did it because I was tired of living in a home that never felt like mine. Because I deserved to walk through a front door without bracing for impact. Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for people who refuse to change is stop making room for them. They thought it was over. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my door. I knew they'd come, even as I drank my coffee that morning, even as I ignored their voicemails. I knew Mom would dig, drive, do whatever it took, not out of concern, out of control. At sunset, a knock, 3 sharp taps, the kind that tries to sound polite but carries a threat beneath. I looked through the peephole. Carol, Frank, Erin, and a trunk full of boxes. I opened the door halfway. You found me, I said. Mom's lipstick was faded, her hair disheveled, Dad's arms were crossed, Erin looked ready to combust. We tried calling, Mom said, we didn't think you'd actually be here. It's my apartment. You said she could move in, and now, we're standing here with all her things, and you're acting like strangers. I stayed still. I never said she could move in here, I said, if it helps Erin, I don't see why not. That was about a place I no longer live in. Erin stepped forward, face flushed. This is petty, Rachel, you act so above everyone, but this is cruel. I tilted my head. You packed your life and drove across the city to move into an apartment you never confirmed still existed. That's not cruelty, that's entitlement. Her voice cracked. You're my sister. Yes, I said, and you've spent years confusing that with unlimited housing. Dad moved in, voice low and sharp. Enough, Rachel, we're not leaving. We've put up with a lot from you. You owe this to your sister. There it was, the word that always hung between us, oh. As if every dollar I gave, every favor I did, every sleepless night I spent fixing their mistakes had been recorded in a ledger, as if love was a debt. But I never signed that contract. I stepped back and picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, eyes narrowing. I didn't answer. I dialed 3 rings, then 911. What's your emergency? My voice was steady. Yes, I have family outside my apartment refusing to leave. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report. A pause. Trespassing. Erin's mouth fell open. Frank muttered a curse. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. Rachel, she whispered, wounded, you're calling the police on your own family? I asked you to leave. I said, you didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Aaron's voice broke into a furious tremble. This is going to ruin everything. Do you know what people will say about you? Yes, I said calmly. They'll say I finally stopped opening my door. Mom blinked, her voice falling to something small. You used to be kind. I didn't flinch. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of every ignored boundary, every forced yes, every moment I swallowed myself to make space for someone else. The patrol car arrived 10 minutes later. The officer stepped out, tall, calm, hand resting near her belt, but relaxed. Evening, she said. We received a call about a trespassing issue. I nodded. That was me. She looked at the three of them, the overstuffed trunk behind them. Ma'am, sir, I'll need you to leave the premises. This is our daughter, Frank said. It's a family matter. And this is her residence, the officer replied. You don't live here. You're not welcome here. That's the end of it. Aaron looked like she might scream or cry, maybe both. You're going to regret this, Rachel. No, I said quietly. I've regretted nearly everything up until now. This is the first thing I'm sure of. The next morning, I woke to 12 missed calls, 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest from numbers I didn't recognize, probably cousins, or family friends I hadn't heard from since college. Then came the texts. Why would you do this to your own sister? Your mother is heartbroken. Erin sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't respond, I just scrolled. Eventually, I found it, a public Facebook post from my mother, 3 paragraphs, heartbreak emojis, and a photo of Erin as a toddler. We raised our daughters to love each other, but one of them has forgotten what that means. Rachel, so successful, so fortunate, turned her back on us in our time of need. Erin didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since middle school, calling me cold, selfish, ungrateful. It wasn't new, just louder. So, for the first time in my life, I responded. A thread, simple, no captions, no hashtags. A screenshot of the $2,000 I wired to save their mortgage. A copy of the car loan I co-signed for Erin, next to the collections notice. A photo of the invoice from the DUI lawyer I paid for. A timeline of one-time favors that spanned 7 years. The closing statement from the condo sale. And a saved message from Erin, 2 years old, where she called me a boring robot for not letting her crash for just a month. I ended with one line. I didn't abandon my family, I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. Then I turned off my phone. Not out of fear, but because I didn't need applause. I just needed quiet. And for once, I had it. The apartment was still, no buzz from the hallway, no blinking phone, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional sigh of the old pipes. I made tea, chamomile. Not to sleep, I didn't need help sleeping anymore, just for the ritual, a soft cup, steam rising like forgiveness I never had to earn. My phone lit up once, Mom, then again, Erin. I didn't open either message, I didn't need to, I knew the rhythm, shock, blame, guilt, begging, always in that order. I blocked them both. Not out of cruelty. Not out of pride. Because some doors aren't meant to be knocked on forever. I stepped out onto the balcony. The air was cold, but not harsh, the kind of cold that made you feel real. Down below, the city moved on, headlights passed, a man in a coat too big walked a dog who didn't seem to care, life, humming along without me. 2 floors down, a neighbor looked up and waved. I waved back. It was small, but it was real, more real than anything I'd ever done out of guilt. Inside, I turned off the lights, one by one. The living room, the kitchen, the hallway. No framed photos, no family portraits. Just clean space. And peace. I didn't feel victorious, or bitter, or broken. I just felt done. Done performing. Done justifying. Done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned how to breathe on their own. Somewhere out there, they were rewriting the story. I'd be the villain, the cold one, the ungrateful daughter. Let them. I didn't come here to be loved. I came here to stop pretending I hadn't disappeared a long time ago. They just didn't notice. Now? I've written it.